let's talk about a game
Mm-hmm.
that Al hates vehemently.
How dare you? I just said how dare you when you made this joke
Just
right before we
despises this
recorded.
game.
No, don't,
Thinks it's garbage. Wants to throw it in the trash every time she sees it. Just
don't,
is like, get
don't,
these PSP copies and throw them in the garbage.
don't
Get
lie to the
these new
people.
copies, throw them on the ground.
Don't lie to the people. Don't lie to the people.
Hey, that's what I've been told. My sources tell me.
Your sources are wrong.
Wow. You don't even know my sources.
Wrong is I know me and I know my brain and I know what I think. My sources are freaking accurate.
Well, we'll get it. We'll debate that apparently.
Game Boy,
Uh,
don't tell lies about me to Jared.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Season Language Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Al and Ladium.
Hello, hello.
This is episode 325, and Al has been waiting to do this episode for like 3 months now, basically. We're going to talk about the Crisis Core.
Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Technically the reunion version.
Yeah, the remake master, whatever you want to call it, that they put out late last year. This is the prequel to Final Fantasy VII, a game that some people like.
Some people like it, yeah.
Some people do indeed like that game.
It basically expands upon some missable cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII that give you a lot of context on what the heck actually happened in Final Fantasy VII.
And seems it's like it's going to be important going forward with the remake stuff, so...
Yeah.
A smart thing to put this game back out, it seems.
I agree with you. It seems like that was a well-intentioned thing here. Well-intentioned? It was a good idea. Because based on what we have seen with the Final Fantasy VII remake, this is probably going to become relevant.
Mm-hmm.
More so relevant than it already was.
Yes. So yeah, this game came out originally was a PlayStation portable game.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the PSP? UMDs.
I do remember the PSP. Not as good as the Vita.
True.
Mm-hmm.
True. It came out on the PSP on September 13th, 2007 in Japan, on March 25th, 2008 in North America, and then June 19th and June 20th, 2008 respectively in Australia and European regions. And then Reunion, which is the remaster / remake, whatever you want to call it, came out worldwide on December 13th, 2022 for the Switch, PS4, PS5, the personal computer, the Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. So definitely a large amount of time. 15 years between this game originally coming out and coming back out.
God, I didn't realize it had been 15 years. Oh, God.
Let's talk about development of the original game, and then we'll talk a little bit about the development of Reunion as well.
Okay.
The idea of Crisis Core originated when Hajime Tabata was chosen as director for an upcoming Final Fantasy title for the PlayStation Portable. Tabata, if you don't know, would also go on to direct such games as Final Fantasy 15.
Oh.
And we all know how that went.
To be fair, wasn't he like the replacement on 15, or was that not correct?
He replaced Nomura.
Okay, yeah. So he actually got it out the door.
Yeah, it's true. But
that's not saying much.
That's a conversation for another time for sure.
After you finish it, we'll talk about it again.
After discussing with Tetsuya Nomura and Yoshinori Kitase, Tabata decided the game should be another installment in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, which I guess is their official title for all of the Final Fantasy VII they've put out.
Correct.
Feeling that the pressure of producing a game from a popular series would motivate both the staff and himself. The original idea was to make a PSP port of Before Crisis Final Fantasy VII, as it had been released for mobile phones, and the staff wanted to expand it. But after deciding Zack was going to be the protagonist of the new game, the idea of a Before Crisis port was canceled, which is interesting, because that game has never come out outside of Japanese phones, right?
Correct.
Until, I guess, that mobile compilation of all the games is going to come out.
Eventually, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kitase wanted to make sure that the game exceeded fans' expectations, so he made sure that rather than making it a tribute to Final Fantasy VII, it shared important links with other titles from compilation of Final Fantasy VII, which, oh god, I hate how that's their title for it. It's so dumb.
It's so dumb.
Similarly, Tabata explained that he and the staff were very wary throughout the production of altering the fans' perception of Final Fantasy VII's characters. For example, one of the main background events from Final Fantasy VII, Nibelheim's destruction, has been changed somewhat in the OVA Last Order Final Fantasy VII, and due to negative fan reactions to these changes, the game staff decided not to make any major changes in Crisis Core.
I don't even remember what the changes were in Last Order.
Well, apparently they were upsetting to people.
I mean, like, most everything's upsetting to Final Fantasy fans.
However, they also operated on the principle that this game dealt with those characters' younger days so that new elements could be added without changing the characters too much. One of the primary reasons Zack was chosen as protagonist was because his fate was predetermined. Kitase stated that Zack's story had been cooking for 10 years, as despite being a minor character in Final Fantasy VII, Nomura had already developed conceptual artwork, and Kazushige Nojima had already worked out a story. The game was originally meant to have more scenes depicting Zack and Cloud's fight to Midgar, so as to expand on their friendship and unrealized plans, but these scenes were removed due to UMD limitations, and so the staff focused more on Zack's background as a formidable warrior. UMD.
Damn UMD.
The addition of the character of Genesis to the story came about after discussions between producer Hideki Imaizumi and the character's Japanese voice actor Gact. As Imaizumi had been impressed with the character's brief appearance in the secret ending to Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII and felt there was great room to expand on the character. I didn't realize Dirge came out before this.
I guess it makes sense because I got Dirge when I was still living in Murfreesboro, and that would have been way before 2008.
And that's a PSP game. Or not, PS2 game,
PS2,
excuse me.
yeah. Also,
Right.
It's weird to see Gact listed primarily as Japanese voice actor because, like, that's not what he's really known for.
No, he's like I
guess
you would say, an entertainment star.
Yeah, like...
He does everything.
He does everything, but it's kind of weird to see him listed. Anyway, but yeah, I kind of forgot Dirge came first until just now.
Gact's real name is Gakuto, which is also a good name.
What?
Just full of good names, is Mr. Gact.
What a cool name!
Yeah.
Gact!
All right, more of this. Sephiroth's role is specifically written to give him more of a human side, which is very good.
Bro Sephiroth.
Everyday normal guy Sephiroth.
With his cell phone.
Yep. The game's logo represents various main characters. The blue sky symbolizes Zack, the white feather symbolizes Angeal, and the water symbolizes Aerith. Crisis Core was first envisioned as an action game, but because almost all of the staff had more experience designing RPGs, they decided to modify it, making battles more similar to the ones found in standard RPGs, which isn't exactly true, but I don't know, maybe the PSP version is a little bit different?
No.
Okay. However, they also added in more action-oriented elements of the battles, resulting in the game becoming more of an action RPG than a traditional RPG. The materia system was designed so that players could choose between RPG-oriented enhancements and action-oriented enhancements, as well as to help with the game's balance. Additionally, the digital mindwave system, the DMV, was added to give gameplay an element of luck, as well to prevent combat feeling repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Nomura and Kitase want to include this in the game because of their enthusiasm for pachinko machines. Which, yeah, sure, that makes sense now. The game was first announced at the 2004 E3 prior to the release of the PlayStation Portable. Its first trailer consisted of clips from Last Order. In an interview for Famitsu, Nomura said that a playable demo of the game would be ready by the end of 2006, but there was no mention of whether the demo would be openly available to PSP owners. By May 2005, Nomura designed the concept art for the game, with the gameplay set to be interesting, quote-unquote, and previously unseen, quote-unquote. Nomura inventing the action RPG genre. In May 2007, both Nomura and Tabata revealed that the game was 90% complete and that completing a story mode and all side quests would take about 100 hours of gameplay. Well, as someone who basically did all of that, is that true?
I mean, I don't think that's that far off. Do you want me to boot it up and check?
I mean, you can. Well, I talk about more of this stuff. A playable demo was made available at Jump Festa 06. Let's talk about the reunion.
The reunion. God, those cutscenes look like.
Yeah, they do. In 2022, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the original Final Fantasy VII, a remaster entitled Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion was developed on all the platforms we talked about earlier. Co-developed with Tosei, who previously collaborated with Square Enix for World of Final Fantasy, the graphics have been converted to HD, including new 3D models for all elements. The game also includes a newly arranged soundtrack and full voice acting for all dialogue. Originally, there were no plans for a big update in graphics until the team decided it would look similar to Remake, which was a smart idea. While much of the story remains the same from the original version, Reunion is part of the larger Final Fantasy VII Remake project, being considered a prequel to the 3-part Remake series. Reunion also features an updated combat system that is a combination of the original battle system and something close to the one featured in Final Fantasy VII Remake. While Square expanded new elements from the story of Remake, Reunion was made to come across as faithful as possible to the original game. Camera work and motions have been adjusted, and all the summons cutscenes have been completely remade. A hard mode was added for the Japanese version for the first time as the Western one had it, and the visuals were made to match the remake. They got all the voice actors from Remake to reprise their roles and everything. Crisis Core is regarded by producer Yoshinori Kitase as a bridge to play between...
they reprised their role in Japan.
No, for like the English dub, the people who did Remake did the voices here.
Oh, the remake. Okay, I was like, not for the original. Okay, sorry, I got thrown off. I'm sorry. Because that was a whole thing of contention. Anyway.
Kitase said this is a bridge to play between Remake and Rebirth, which is the two games in that.
Which makes sense as we were talking about earlier.
Yes. However, since the original Crisis Core was released only for the PSP, the game was remastered into Reunion in order to make it accessible, which is again smart.
Very smart.
Director Tetsuya Nomura, who directed the Reunion, wanted Crisis Core to be seen as its own story when compared with other games from the recently released Remake. Plans for developing Reunion started during the making of Remake. One of the biggest reasons was to expand upon the character of Zack, who would become more prominent in the narrative. Though new actors were implemented for the English version, the story was not altered. Since Remake altered parts from Crisis Core, Kitase aims players to explore more of the connections between the story. In the making of Reunion, several improvements to the original Crisis Core were implemented. Producer Mariko Sato stated that the gameplay was altered to avoid interruptions in the middle of the combat while retaining the basic elements of the digital Mindwave system. A skip function has also been added. Other improvements have also been made to the hit stop mechanic, as well as adjusting the magic speed for the improvement. That's a bad sentence. Sato says that it was difficult, but they believe that players would be pleased with the final product, as the game was released to several consoles instead of the original, which was a PlayStation Portable exclusive.
I have an answer for you.
Caller, go ahead.
So I did every single thing in this game besides the super boss, because it's really, really hard.
But you did try.
I did try. I have 55 hours and...
Okay, well that's definitely not close.
Nope. So I'm either really, really good at this game comparatively, or they vastly overestimated.
Which probably that's the case. Like, you know, they're saying like, hey, this is going to take you a while.
Yeah. I mean, like 55 hours is not a short amount of time, but it's not 100 hours.
Yeah. Which I think mine was like maybe like 20. And that was me doing a good chunk of missions, but then also kind of like speeding through the end of the game.
Yeah, you ended up fast tracking it at the end.
Metacritic scores for this game. The PSP version received an 83 out of 100 back in the day. And then Reunion received a 77 out of 100 on Switch, a 83 out of 100 on PC, a 78 out of 100 on the PlayStation 5, and a 83 out of 100 on the Xbox Series X and S. And then the game sold over 150,000 units upon being released in Japan. It debuted at the 8th place in the UK box charts. And there's your sales numbers for that. The original sold over 350,000 copies in Japan on its release date, including the 77,777 limited edition PSP Crisis Core bundles. Does this say anything else? Blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. By March 2009, Crisis Core had sold 2.1 million units worldwide. 830,000 of those sales came from Japan. And then, apparently, in response to these sales, Square Enix labeled Crisis Core their best PSP game of the year, and it was an incredible success, citing Square Enix's UK sales director, Doug Bone, which is a good name.
Why are there so many good names in this episode?
It's true.
Good name episode. Here we go.
So yeah, Crisis Core. It's a video game. You play as Zack. He's here, and then he dies. The end.
Wow! Wow. Wow. You didn't even bring up the umbrella fight with the um swim trunks? Come on.
That part's pretty good.
That part is pretty good.
They should have let you. They should have given you like an option after that as like, do you want your sword just to be an umbrella from now on
Right, right. Do you want this
instead of
like a
the Buster
skin?
sword? Yeah, that would have been pretty
Would
good.
have been really funny.
Pretty good.
Yeah, we get a lot of background story on Final Fantasy VII
Setting the
in this.
stage.
Yeah, yeah, setting up what's gonna happen, figuring out what caused Sephiroth to become the way that he did.
It's caused Sephiroth to throw materia at Cloud and then fly off.
Um to stop using his
Flip phone.
rose and vanilla shampoo and conditioner, one single bottle every single day, provided by
There's a
Shinra.
lot of weird stuff in this video game. Which, granted, like if you look at the individuals involved in making this video game,
It
like
makes
yeah, of
sense.
course there's going to be a lot of weird stuff, but man, there's some weird stuff in this game.
Um,
Uh,
I will say, I will get my criticalness of this game out of the way. Um, I don't think that the mission uh format is,
structure.
yeah, I don't think it's as fun as it was on PSP.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's. I feel like that is a very much a thing of like this is a game for a portable device, and like a lot of games around that time kind of use the same format. I mean, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the Monster Hunter format as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it feels very indicative of a game that came out in the mid 2000s, especially for a handheld device.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily aged as well because a lot of those
It
missions
got so
is
repetitive.
just it's repetitive content, but it also it's a lot of padding.
Yeah, it is.
Like there is some fun stuff you can find in there, like the Yuffie stuff. I think is a lot of fun.
I love the Yuffie stuff, and the beach stuff is funny, even though they use the same cutscene every single time for like
Yeah,
what's building up to it and what you end with. But like, there is some good story based stuff in there that I think like they could have left.
but a lot of it is basically just the same thing over and over and over
Hey,
and
do you want to
over
go back to
again.
these caves again and again and again and again and again and again and again
Mm-hmm.
and again? Um, so yeah, that part, even though I did all of it, it did get repetitive. Um, so that is one knock on the game, if we are being for real, for real.
I do think like if you like separating the mission stuff from just like the actual gameplay of the title itself, like I think it plays fine. Like
Yeah, it
it
totally plays
definitely
fine.
it is way more of an action game than a JRPG. It's very kind of in the same vein as like what Remake is, what's kind
Hmm.
of Final Fantasy itself has kind of become over the last couple years. Like, I mean, you could also probably say it has roots in it from like Kingdom Hearts as well.
Oh yeah.
It's very much in those style of action RPGs, and I think it plays really well. Like the dodging and everything feels really good. Um, which I guess they did enhance this where like they made magic faster and everything, which I think
Hmm.
that stuff feels pretty good, and just like getting to all that stuff feels really snappy.
Well,
And then just
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say like it definitely I like the way like that they talk about how like the materia system lets you kind of customize how you
That's
want
what I was
Zack to
gonna
play,
say, is that we
and I think
play
that
very different types of Zags.
yeah, I think that makes it really good. Is like you can cater this to the play style you want, and decide how exactly you want to tackle battles, and you can like have your different setups for like specific things and everything. But like it makes it so you get to play the game how you want to play the game, and I think that's a really smart move.
It's very strange to me that I play Zack the way that I do in this game because it's very much not how I normally play things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tend to be like a distance magic type of person. Like I don't want to get all up in people's faces.
Which is kind of
Um,
how like I was. I was like more of
yeah.
like a mix of that, where like if I was just bored, I was go blah 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 blah, blah and spam the attack button. But then also I just like I could just sit back and cast Dark Firaga at them and just destroy people.
But like my method was like having costly punch on and then like breaking all the like damage limits and HP limits and all that and just getting right up on them and stomping them, which is not my normal play style at all. And I relied a lot on like having to have like a regen on and a Curaga handy and all that because it takes your health away. But I was also just like wrecking faces. But that is not how I normally play. And I think it's very, very interesting that like we had very different gameplay styles on this.
Yeah, for sure. The DMW is a weird system because you don't level up through normal means as you would like in any
No.
other action RPG game. It's very dependent on the slots, so you basically have to get the RNG. I mean, obviously, like it's not like
It's a
oh, I'm
set
gonna do
RNG with the
yeah.
777.
You're not gonna do like 500 battles and not get a level up.
Yeah.
It's eventually going to happen, but like it's not like we're just doing battles and grinding in that way. You can't. I mean, I guess you could grind, but it's a
It's a different kind of grind.
different kind essentially. Yeah. And the way the other stuff works in it is like it gives you like if you have relationships with these people or you get summons or all the other stuff you can get. You know, if it lines up in the right way, you'll get an attack from them or a buff or something like that. Which I think is interesting, and also it's like when I was going into this originally, I thought that the way this worked is that you'd have to do all that manually. You'd have to like hit a button and like line up the slots that way,
Oh
but it just
boy.
does it automatically. So like it's very much just you just leave it in the corner. It does its thing, and then hey, if it's something happens, you know, you're just like okay, cool. I have no cost MP. Let's just spam magic. I have endure. I'm not gonna get killed. Or here I got a cool attack. Let's hit the triangle button and do that. So it makes it kind of just like it's just like you're just doing your battles and everything, and it's just in the background doing its thing. So
Or
you
get the
really
creepy Moogle.
or get that creepy Moogle. That thing is something, all right. Um, so where you don't really have to worry about it. It's just kind of like it's just there. It's
It's just
not really
there.
like super important for the player to really like worry about, I guess. Which again, like I thought was going to be the thing going into this game. I was like, oh, that seems sketchy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see why that would seem sketchy if you didn't know that like you didn't have to control that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is there to like show how much like importance Zach puts on relationships with people
Right.
because like it's all driven by people that you meet or hang out with or I don't know, want to fight. Um, and then if you have like a story beat that involves that character, then like your emotions towards them are heightened. Um, and I think that that's something that is an interesting mechanic based on who Zach is and how he thinks about people. Like they bring it around to the story. It's not just like a weird mechanic for the sake of being weird mechanic, even though apparently it's based on pachinko. And you know why not just pachinko it up?
For sure. I will say I think they did a good job of like bringing the visuals up to a modern day standard, and
Mm-hmm.
like kind of aligning those with the character stylings that are found in like remake and all that sort of stuff. So it, for the most part, this game does look pretty good.
Except for the fuzzy
There are some
cutscenes.
like of the pre-rendered cutscenes that they really, I'm gonna guess they probably just couldn't do much with,
Yeah.
and they were probably also kind of ham-fisted by the fact that like the PSP was probably also a weird aspect ratio screen. So like
Mm-hmm.
you're taking those cutscenes, which probably weren't necessarily rendered out the best in terms of like high quality, and now you're blowing them up for bigger screens and everything. So like they're gonna get a little fuzzier in that way, and like I would assume as well because it's Square Enix and they've had a history of this problem of like they probably didn't have like the raw files
Source
from it
code. Yeah.
to make them like to like render them out and make them look better. So you just kind of get these weird pixely compressed cutscenes that don't necessarily look that great, which is a little bit of a bummer because like the in-game cutscenes look really good,
They look really good.
and then you get to these and you're just like, oh yeah, right, this is
This is a PSP game.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the in-game cutscenes look super, super great. And like you said, there's like some character model consistency. Like you can definitely see consistency in like 15, 16-year-old Cloud and what Cloud becomes in Remake.
Yeah, it's definitely I think more work that they did that I would have expected,
Yeah, I agree.
because they definitely could have just been like, here it is again. We just did a little bit of polish to it. It looks like PSP game.
Yeah, and I
But
mean,
they did a
especially because you
significant
had to
amount of
like
work.
redo like Angeal and I was gonna call him Gak Genesis.
No, it's fine. Just call him Gact.
Gact. And
Gact.
then you have like Cisne that, you have to actually do all these models that you don't have in remake
Yet.
yet. I mean, we know Gact is alive.
Hey, if Zack can be alive in remake, why can't Gact come back as well?
Let Gact come back.
Gact is backed.
Let him read some Loveless at Cloud and see how he likes
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Now that we have an
Now we're
ending for
talking.
Loveless, let's have
Let's
him
go.
recite some of that for Cloud, and Cloud's just like, huh?
Bring that little over and let him read his little poetry at you.
Genesis is legitimately one of my favorite characters in this game because of how ridiculous he's basically just like if a lit nerd was given a sword.
Yes.
Because he's got like that ridiculous like clinging to this literature stuff, but like makes it a lot of his personality, if not his entire personality.
He's like V from DMC5 if
Oh my
he could
god,
actually
he
fight.
is. He is. Why do I love characters like this?
Because they're dumb.
They're
In the best
dumb.
ways.
That cutscene where you have Genesis Angel and Sephiroth all like fighting on the Junon cannon.
Oh, that cutscene is very good.
It's very good. It's one of my favorite cutscenes in like the entirety of the Final Fantasy lore, or Final Fantasy VII lore. Um, just because it's so stupid and it's fantastic, and you're like, what are these weird bros? It's great.
That was probably one of my favorite cutscenes in this game as well, just because how bombastic and over the top it is, and just it's so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. The part where like the cannon gets cut, and one part it's Sephiroth's just like going down. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. Haha.
It's very good.
We also get a really good side of Sephiroth in this game. I mean, we already kind of hinted at it with like Bro Sephiroth with his flip phone, flip phone, and his shampoo. But like, this game really humanizes him in a way that Final Fantasy VII doesn't.
Genuinely, I think that might be one of my favorite things about this game, and maybe the biggest surprise of this game for me was how much work they did to making like Sephiroth's turn be way more meaningful and not just, oh, he's just a weirdo and has been a weirdo this whole time type of deal. Like, nah, he like, I mean, obviously he's put up on this pedestal as like the best dude and soldier and everything, and like everyone looks up to him, but like he has his bros of, Angeal and Genesis, and obviously they have like this weird split between the three of them, and you can see how like that affects him, afterwards, and like I feel like he kind of finds something in Zack that like is similar to that, and like he kind of makes Zack like this quasi protege of him, and like tries to help him out, tries to lift him up in Soldier as well to get him to be one of the better operatives in the group as well.
And also sees an ally in him and trying to bring Genesis and Angeal back.
Yeah. So like there's just all these good moments. Is like it's we make fun of it because like Sephiroth, normal dude Sephiroth, because like he is kind of just a normal dude for like 3/4 of this game, and it's very funny because of just how different it is from the other games. But like it's a nice like refreshing thing to see because like we said, we don't really see this in other media that is tied to Final Fantasy VII. It's just here's weird Sephiroth, or if we get to other titles that we won't name, super duper edgelord Sephiroth. But it was just so nice to see this. It's like very refreshing, and just like I really enjoyed just his normal dude run where he's just like, hey, I'm just here. Hey, how's it going? I'm gonna help you out. All right, let's do our stuff here.
Holding the phone away from his ear when Zack's yelling in the phone.
that was maybe the most just like humanizing aspect. Is like Zack's just like very excited, like and he's like, oh god, this kid, oh no, he's too excited. Please calm down. But yeah, like it was really good, and like obviously like they're able to do this because they have the hindsight of the entirety of Final Fantasy VII, but like it really makes his turn way more sympathetic because like you see everything go down in Nibelheim, and like Gact's like, Oh, you're a monster like us, but you're the perfect monster. You're the best experiment. Ooh, aren't you so cool?
Also, gonna have some of yourselves.
And then he just puts himself away in like the mansion and like just reads through all these documentation, which like I think it's interesting because it spells out exactly what happened, but I think that doesn't tell the whole story because like he is viewing this documentation that Shinra themselves wrote. So there's going to be a lot of like what am I trying to say here? Like unseen propaganda like scattered throughout their writing because it's just like it's going to be them trying to prop themselves up and be like, this is why we did this and this is why it's great. So he's reading all of this and finding out all of this stuff that he's wanted to know for so long, and getting
basically
like
radicalizes himself.
It essentially radicalizes himself because he's finding all of the worst answers to his issues, and that just basically makes him turn and be like, all right, screw them, screw everyone else. I'm just gonna take everyone out, and that's that. So it was just a very interesting way to showcase his eventual turn, I think, and I think I really do think they pulled it off really well.
I think so too. I mean, like I said, he just kind of comes across as like a like I don't know the correct phrasing for this, but basically he's just like a one-note villain-ish in Seven because you're not really given reasons why he's like this.
Basically all you know is like he was very good at his job, and then something wouldn't happen, and he just basically lost his mind and now wants to destroy everything.
Yeah, and Genova's involved somehow. Like, can you imagine if instead of him like going and reading all the stuff from Shinra Mansion, like if he had found his mom who is alive and like gone to talk to her about what had happened, like this would have ended very differently.
Or if Gak doesn't show up and is like, hey,
make it even worse.
I'm here to make things bad for you.
Yeah, what a good friend that Gacked.
I think as well, like they could have just made Sephiroth, because like the way they hype Sephiroth up in this game is that, you know, like we said, he's the best in Soldier. He's the top person here.
Like, he's like leading Soldier at one point.
The creme de la creme. And like you could have taken that, especially with how he's a villain in the later game, like just he's an arrogant dude who knows he's the best and he's full of it and he's pompous and all that sort of stuff. But like
he's not like that at all.
He's not. He's very reserved. He's kind of just like, he doesn't like really fall into like the hype or anything. He just like he's good at his job. He knows he's good at his job, but like he doesn't really make that like a focal point. He's just like, yeah, I do my job and that's it. I'm here to do the mission.
But he even like does training with Zack at one point. Like one of Zack's DMW like cutscene wheels is like him telling him like how to kill an enemy in one blow.
Yeah.
Like he's just sitting there coaching Zack, who at that point is like not really under him or anything.
He's like, hey, this guy, you know, needs a little help. I'll give him a little advice here and there.
Yeah, like
a little squirt.
A little squirt. I mean, he's part of the same crew as him essentially because he's Soldier, and Soldier's a pretty elite force. But like, he's not like directly mentoring him like Angeal is.
Right,
but he
like,
knows
hey,
that Angeal cares about him, so he's like,
yeah.
"Hey, I'll throw you a bone too. Come on."
Yeah.
But he's not like a complete arrogant weirdo about his job or his goodness.
Yeah, I think making him like more humble just again makes that characterization far better than they could have easily done if they were just like, oh, he's, you know, villain. Let's just make him villain again.
Right. No, instead we make him have the scent of vanilla and roses.
And just be a normal dude.
Be a normal dude. Normal guy.
Normal guy Sephiroth.
I love it.
But yeah. Obviously, this game as well is we learn a lot about Zack, who...
Yeah.
If you play through Final Fantasy VII, he is basically kind of relegated to some story cutscenes, but a lot of his backstory is relegated to a lot of, like, hidden, missable text stuff that you can find in the game. Which is, again, a very weird thing that they decided to do, but it is what they decided to do.
Like, one of the big cutscenes that you find out, like, what actually happened to Zack is after you get Cloud's memory back, you have to go back to Shinra Manor, and there's no reason for you to go back there. So you'd kind of have to know to go back.
Right.
Or you're just a weirdo and you're looking for everything, which I'm
True. That
sure is
also
how
that.
somebody figured it out. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um but that's how you get the cutscene of like, this is what actually happened to Zach. This is how it ended. Um but like you said, he's there and he's obviously a very important part of the story, but we don't know much about him at all.
Yeah.
Until now.
Which they definitely try to make him kind of the opposite of how Cloud is, especially like in later material,
Mm-hmm.
where Cloud's kind of just brooding and not the most friendly of dudes, let's
Right,
say,
right.
in some portions of Final Fantasy VII, where Zack is kind of just like has this bubbly personality and is very friendly to people.
Like they all call him the puppy for a reason.
Yeah, he's very eager to learn about everything. Just wants to go out on missions and do his job.
He
He's
wants to be a
very excited to be
hero.
a soldier, and it's a fun clash between the two of them. Which is interesting because like when you meet Cloud later in this game, like he's definitely not really like that. He's just kind of
Mm.
like he's a shy, just infantry dude who like gets to hang out with Zack. He's like very excited about that. He's like, yeah, I get to hang out with this dude who's in Soldier. That's really cool. Maybe one day I'll get to be there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they hit it off and to get to be pals and everything, and it's a fun little relationship that they have throughout the rest of the game and all that.
It is.
Um, but I think Zack as a character as a whole is like he's fun. Like he's kind of goofy in weird ways, but like it's part of his charm
Mm.
that helps you kind of relate to him as you play throughout the game, and then like you get to see all the different sides of him, especially like when like he starts figuring out like, oh, things are real messed up, and especially like towards the end of the game when like everything's going very poorly and he's like just on edge and trying to just survive with Cloud. There's a lot to him that I think they did to really make him stand out when they could have again just gone an easy route and just kind of not put this much characterization into him.
Right, right. And I think that one of the cool things about this storytelling is that you do see him go from like, I'm so proud to be a soldier, like this is what I want to do. I want to be the hero. I want to help all the people, to realizing like, oh, maybe we're not the heroes. Maybe we're not the good guys. But like trying to figure out how to move within that system and still help.
Yeah.
Um and I also think that this is an interesting thing to have, especially because there seems to be this misconception with Final Fantasy VII fans, because they apparently can't read, that they think that Cloud took on the memories and personality of Zack, and that is very obviously not the case.
I mean, it's somewhat memories. The personality, no,
No,
definitely not.
no. Like when you meet Cloud in the beginning of Final Fantasy VII, he is nothing like Zack at any point. He's not even like Zack anywhere in this game in Final Fantasy VII. But people seem to think that like he took on that personality, and he didn't. He didn't take on that personality. What he did is basically just like shut himself down.
He kind of makes himself into like this amalgamation of what a soldier's supposed to be, and also probably
Yes,
what he thinks like Sephiroth was.
that's what I'm thinking too. Is that he's basically like, well, for lack of a better word, what a 16-year-old would think a soldier's supposed to be.
Right.
Because, he was put in that tube at 16 and didn't come out until he was 20, and then he was, in that state until 21. Um, so, he's coming out of it with honestly a 16-year-old's mindset of like what he's supposed to be like, which is also kind of to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yikes. Um, and like, yeah, he does transplant himself into some of the situations that Zack was put into, but also Cloud was in those same situations. So he didn't like take the memories of Zack. Um, he just transplanted himself into Zack's position, whereas he was instead a grunt.
Yeah, he just repurposed them essentially.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He just kind of changed the blocking a bit so that he was the main character instead of Zack. But I think that that's a really important thing about this game is that it shows people like, no, this is not what happened. Like he didn't take on the personality, he didn't take on the memories because Zach and Cloud are two very, very different people. Like very different people.
Very.
But even then, like you can see some moments by the time that like Cloud gets his back together at the end of seven. Like I could see Zach saying, "Let's mosey."
Oh, 100%.
um, but yeah, Cloud is just kind of a little shy boy, and I mean that makes sense because like he was kind of bullied his entire life. So like
He wanted to go be a soldier, and he
he wanted to
clearly has
be a
not
hero
got there
too.
yet. So like, he's probably not feeling the best about himself at this point in time.
Right, right. So you have this guy who's in Soldier who's like, "Hey dude, I like you. You're cool. Let's hang out. Let's talk." He's like, "Ooh, this is neat. Thank you." So he feels like he has like a friend and somebody who like encourages him, which is nice.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, Zach has a lot more depth than I think people give him credit for because a lot of people think that he's like really excitable, annoying dude, and like I don't see that, but maybe because I'm also just like a big old fan of this guy. Like yeah, he does get really hyper and excitable. It's about certain things, but like he cares quite a lot and he grows quite a lot in this story. Um, one thing that I do wish, it was saying that it there was originally going to be more scenes with him and Cloud, but the UMD made that not happen. I wish we had gotten more scenes with him and Cloud. I wish we had gotten more scenes with him and Aerith.
yeah,
Because that's also an interesting dynamic that we see some of, but not a whole lot of. And it makes some of her comments in Seven, Vanilla Seven, and Remake Seven. Um, I mean, it makes sense, but like it's kind of a bummer because like she tells Cloud like, oh, it wasn't that serious, but like she was writing him letters for 4 years. Um, she also like at one point thinks that maybe he left for like another girl, and I think that that's partially something that Crisis Core does in a strange way is that he kind of does have this weird thing with Cisne
yeah,
that I'm like, I don't know, this should have been a thing. Um, but it does kind of make him look somewhat like a player, which is
yeah. I
what
mean,
Era
that's fair.
thinks.
Yeah,
So, I don't know. I love seeing Aerith though.
yeah. I really like the way they kind of build up their relationship and everything, and you get to see how they begin to get like closer and closer through the story, and just like how the reveal of like at the end there of like how long it's been for him, and he's just like,
Mm.
oh no, what have I done?
Yeah,
I've bamboozled it.
yeah. When he realizes it's been 4 years, he's like, "Oh God." Well, and then like when you see Aerith at the end and she's dressed like she is in Seven, you're like, "Oh wow, yeah, it's been a minute," because she's 22 now.
Mm-hmm.
She was 16 when we met her at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
Wild. So that means they had 2 years together, on and off with him doing missions and stuff. Um, and I mean, I could see that. I also do think it's a cool thing that like when they are first like having conversations with each other, she inadvertently like dunks on him in his profession. Is like, yeah, soldiers are scary. Like they go through some kind of like um surgery or manipulation or something, and like I don't know if they're even human. He's like, yep. But then he's
About that.
but then he's able to turn it around. Then he like talks to her about his eyes, and she ends up thinking that they're really pretty. And then that's one of the first things she notices about Cloud in Seven is his eyes. They're the same. Um, and I also appreciate that she talks about how she thinks the sky is scary. But then like she sees it in his eyes and that maybe it's not so scary. And then, in Seven, she's actually able to see the sky without the plate. So, and she's not scared by it. You see like character development carrying over there. But I mean, I guess she is quite a bit older at that point, but I think one thing that we haven't mentioned really at all is Angeal.
He's just there.
He just a little.
He's just kind of there.
He's just kind of there. He is a mentor. I don't think he's nearly as interesting as Genesis or Sephiroth.
Not in the slightest. He's just basically your traditional, I'm your mentor. I will teach you things.
Then I'll die.
Something bad happened to me. I sacrificed myself. That's basically it. Like, Angeal could not be here, and I would not think it's a detriment to the story.
Yeah. I mean, we might not have gotten the mullet hair if Angeal had not died. It would have been better. His Zach's original hairstyle is so much better, but I understand they were trying to mimic his hairstyle from Seven, and yikes. Yikes.
Big old yikes.
Yikes. But yeah, we were talking earlier about like how it had been 4 years. But then we have another year on the run. And I think that the game really would have benefited from like actually showing that time passing.
Yeah, because they really don't do a good job of like making you understand. Like,
it looks like all
exactly
that happens like very close together.
Yeah,
and it doesn't. It's just like, hey, we're on the run. Hey, Cisne's gonna let us go. Hey, we're at Gongaga.
Gaga.
Cisne's gonna let us go again. Okay, now I'm gonna die. But like that whole year is just on turbo fast mode. So that's kind of a bummer. I wish that there had been more of that content, but then I know that it would have been kind of hard since Cloud is not really a character at that point. Like all he can really do is grunt
and just sit there and take a nap.
Yeah. So I guess that would have been hard with like Zach having to like just have repeated conversations to Cloud with no responses at all.
Yeah, but I think as well you could have easily just put like text on the screen saying, "Hey."
1 year later.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have.
Showcasing time passed or
something. You could have. You absolutely could have. There is a way to do it. They just didn't do it, and it's a bummer because it makes it seem like it's only 4 years when it's back. It's 5 years that since the events of Nibelheim went down to the end. I think that something that they also do well in this game is characterize Song a bit better. Because we know him from Seven, like he's the leader of the Turks. He's like tasked with keeping up with Aerith quite a lot. He just seems kind of serious, and we don't know much about him. So getting to learn more about who he is and what he's about was kind of cool, but we also see some of his like cutthroatness in this game too. So, but he did save all the letters.
That part I think is weird because like they don't really explain his motivations for doing that well. It's just like, hey, we gotta go capture him, but also I'm gonna give him these letters. Like it's like, okay.
I think what they're trying to imply, and I could be very, very wrong on this because obviously they didn't explain it, I think what they're trying to imply there is that he does, like, even though this is his mission, he does care about Aerith and he does care about Zack, and he like wants them to have some form of happiness, not
Hmm.
necessarily together, but he wants them to be like happy kids. Um, and so he kept the letters so that like they weren't sent back to her, and thinking that he could eventually get them to Zack.
He's trying to do a solid, but in like a very weird way.
Correct. Because he's also still the leader of a very, very shady organization
Right,
who
right,
is
right.
tasked with bringing him back. And I think Song kind of does some of the same, or has at least some of the same thought processes as Cisne, and like letting Zack kind of do his thing.
Yeah.
Um, because you can't convince me, like with Cisne finding him twice when he's on the run, that if they had really, really put the Turks on it, that they wouldn't have found him.
And it's weird as well because like they mentioned how they want to find him before like the army gets to him, which is
Hmm.
like a weird. It's a weird thing to be like, yeah, we're trying to find him in very different ways, and or I
Hmm.
guess like essentially we almost have different missions
You
in
wonder
order
what
to
would have
find him.
happened if he had gone with the Turks as opposed to continuing to run.
Right.
Um, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Again, because they don't explain it that well.
No, they don't. Um, I, you know this. I've mentioned several times when I played the PSP version that I like cried like a baby at the end.
Yes.
Then I played this one. I was like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna be strong. I know what's gonna happen. And then like
Psych.
was just full on like ugly crying in my apartment, sobbing. Like it was not a pretty scene. And then you beat it, and I was initially shocked because I didn't get to see the scene, but I pulled it up on YouTube, and then I ended up being sniffly, and you were cracking
Yeah,
jokes the
because
whole
you wanted
time.
to suffer apparently.
I just felt
The
weird.
PS5 gave you an out, and you were just like, no, I gotta do this.
I felt weird not seeing what you were seeing.
You've seen it though.
I know. I know. And that's why I almost 100% of this game was because it was like, I don't want Zach to die. I just want to keep
Well,
going.
about that.
So I did all the caves, and then Final Fantasy VII Remake's like, well, what if? What if? Um, but I mentioned this to you, and I've mentioned this to several people in the how many years this game's been out. Um, I do really think it's a cool idea how they have like the DMW break
Yeah, I
at
thought
the
that was a
end.
really interesting idea, especially because like you're supposed to be in this unwinnable battle and like seeing your relationships kind of go up in dust
Hmm.
as like it starts to get more and more,
Hopeless.
yeah, hopeless that you're gonna make it out of here alive. So I thought that was like a really interesting way to showcase that,
Hmm.
and also to like combine it into a gameplay aspect as well.
Because it's been something that like is an important part of this game, but it's kind of been in the background because you don't pay attention much to the reels unless it like pops up in the center.
Right.
But like you see them now actively breaking down, and you're not able to use them, so you can't like pull on those emotions and those friendships and that power to win it.
Goodbye, my relationship with the messed up Moogle.
Goodbye, my relationship with the Tonberry.
Never forget.
Never ever forget. Ripperoni.
But yeah, I thought that was a good idea that they chose to do that because again it makes that final battle more meaningful and it's like more, it showcases more that it's just like it's you are not getting out of this
It's
situation.
unwinnable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it shows the desperation, especially like once it cuts and there's like a few guys there, and like his actual like fighting style is so stunted. Like you were struggling to even hit a guy.
I still hit him.
You did hit him, you're correct.
Scrub.
But like you do see this like desperate situation that you realize like this is not. Not a winnable situation at all. And then Cloud wakes up and is like,
Uh-oh.
hi.
Did you spill a bunch of Kool-Aid over here? What happened?
And then you get the living legacy line, and he hugs Cloud and
He
smears.
queefs the Buster Sword to him.
He does. He also smears his blood all over his face.
He does. Gives him some little red streaks.
So wants him to give. And oh, what's Cloud's new voice actor's name? Cody? I think that's his name. Oh boy, does he do a better job with this scene than the original one. Like I have mentioned this many, 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 many times. Um the original voice actor for Zach, his name is Rick, and I'm trying to remember his last name. Um I'm bad at last names.
Rick Gomez.
Yeah, thank you. Caleb is the name of the new one. Um Rick Gomez was a much better Zach. I will say that. I will maintain that forever, ever, ever.
Which like that's not necessarily an Al complaint. It's a complaint I think for a lot of people is that
yeah,
they prefer the original voice actor, which I don't have really the
you don't
context for
right.
because I didn't play the original game. I didn't play a lot of the original material that Zach would have been voiced in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have that like connection that a lot of other people would have. So I'm just like, hey, he seemed fine in this. I don't know.
But yeah, the like I said,
Gongaga.
Gongaga. Like I said, no one can make that line sound good. But I think Cloud's his name Cody. But
Yes, you're right.
he really really did such a better job with Cloud. I think that he's a very very good Cloud.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But like that yell at the end, like you feel that pain.
Man
Ooh,
pain.
lots of man pain. Wait a minute. Is Final Fantasy VII just man pain?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, Crisis Core is man pain plus everyone realizing Shinra's really bad.
Right.
That's your two. Those are the two things you just got to take away from this game.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Okay. But yes, I think that one of the big lines that you can tell the difference with the
Gaga.
not going gaga. Like I said, no one can make that line sound good. Me going gaga.
Gaga.
Which you kept saying at the end to try and make me not cry.
I tried my best.
You really did. I appreciate it. But the price of freedom line is very, very different in how Rick Gomez voiced it. And I've seen some people trying to justify why it's done this direction in this version of it, and also in remake because they recreate this entire scene again in remake, and the lines are mostly there. But the way that it's voiced in the original is that Rick comes across with a voice that's kind of like he knows that this is going to be a losing battle. He knows he's not going to win it. And so he's just kind of like resigned himself and like making a quip about this before he goes off and, you know, does his thing. Whereas this version of it, or I think I said his name was Caleb, it comes across more of as like a cocky line, which isn't what I would think Zach would do at this point because like he realizes it's not going to be a winning fight. But people are arguing that the like revoicing and the cockiness of it is like a backing up the fact that he can actually win it and may potentially survive for a remake.
Which again, like that's not like neither of those is indicative on the voice actors themselves. Like that's very much a director's
Correct.
call.
Correct. Yes.
So.
I am not knocking the voice actor at all. I think he does some really, really good work in this. Like there are multiple lines. I was like, okay, that was really well done. With Zach, I just don't think that was one of them.
Yeah, I just think like there's gonna be some people
that's a direction
who, like,
thing.
Yeah, some people who will look at this and be like, "Oh, this is a voice actor thing," so
No, it's
clearly
not a voice actor
that's
thing.
how it's going to be. Like, no, definitely a director's call for sure.
It absolutely is. And I mean, I was initially one of those people that was like, oh God, I can never get used to this. But like by the time that I had played more of this, I'm like, you know what? He's a good Zach. He really is. Is he the exact same Zach that I know? No, but that's okay. Like he's not a bad Zach. It was just that one line that I was like, oh, why? But that is definitely not on him. And
Gongaga.
so I'm going gaga. Like I said, no one can make that sound good. Um, but like Aerith's voice actress, beautiful, nails it always, fantastic. Actually, Sephiroth's new voice actor did a really good job.
Everyday normal Sephiroth. I mean, that's just the experience you get when you play on. Hang on. When you're on Seventh Heaven for 4 years,
What
his voice actor was on Seventh Heaven.
was he really?
Yes.
Who is he? What is his name?
Martin.
Martin? His first name is Martin?
No, his first name is Tyler, but like he played a character named Martin on the show.
Oh, I never watched Seventh Heaven, but like, wow.
There you go.
Cody Christian is like the most white boy name I've ever heard in my life. Sorry.
Definitely.
Sorry.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. But yeah, I do. They also like for the end of this game there was originally it was just basically it was like here is the opening cutscene to Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
I don't know how that they did that in the PSP version. Like I don't know if it's just strictly they just ripped the PS1 cutscene and put it in there, or if they kind of like did a remake of it.
I don't remember honestly.
But essentially for this, they just took those cutscenes from Remake and just slapped them in here. And it's like, all right, here's Aerith walking through. She's got her flowers. Here's Cloud jumping on the train. He's like, I'm Cloud. I'm a soldier. And then I just love at the end. It's like, to be continued in Final Fantasy VII. It's very weird. Like, I mean, obviously, yes, that's the case. But it's just a very weird thing to put at the end of the game.
Especially considering, that Final Fantasy VII came out like a decade before this. I have to ask you one of the most important questions.
Gongaga.
How much did you appreciate Yuffie doing her Naruto run
and
crying and all that?
It's very good. Look, there are some people I know who hate Yuffie just
why
unequivocally for whatever reason.
Because she stole the materia?
Yes, because they're weird like that, but she is fantastic in this game and real fun, and it just made me laugh every time she showed up.
She's so fun.
And every time she claimed that she was not the anonymous person texting Zach.
Nope. Don't know that person. This is a different person.
It's very funny.
That and like her trying to like bamboozle him a few times, like, oh hey, if you check your phone, then you'll find the answer. And he's like, no. Huh? No, I'm not gonna do that.
It's real funny.
It's really good. I really enjoy the Yuffie scenes in this game quite a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
My other question for you.
Yes.
Do you think, based on things that we've seen now, that we will see characters like Gact and Sisney again?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's 100% guaranteed because we don't know what the they're going to do with those games. But I think you don't put this much work into remaking this game or remastering it, let's say, to not do that. Especially with how they've already shown that they want to bring in characters from like Dirge into the remake universe like they did in the Yuffie DLC.
Right, and that's what I was thinking is that like they brought a character from Dirge into the Yuffie DLC, and that character from Dirge is also one of the ones who
shows up at the end
of this.
I definitely think there's room for possibility of Gact coming back,
Yacht.
or Cisne, especially because we talked about this at the end, like how Cisne kind of just disappears after this and isn't really brought back up. So I think it wouldn't be surprised, especially because they have a model for now that they could just like bloop bloop
Right.
throw in there.
Well, and especially with this alternate timeline that might potentially exist.
I definitely see there being a realm of possibility of that being a case, and I will say I'm very interested to see what they do with the second remake game and like this alternate timeline that they're using. Of like, I want to see those scenes where like Zack meets back up with Cloud and Aerith, and like what happens, and like those conversations. Like I'm way more invested in seeing those now, having played this, than I was at the end of playing the first remake game.
Great success.
And seeing Gact.
I've made you care about Zack.
If Gact doesn't show back up and quote Loveless at Cloud and Tifa and Barrett, oh my god, I want Gact to quote Loveless at Barrett.
Yes!
What the are you talking about?
I need this to happen now.
That is the dream.
Yes.
Tetsuya Nomura, call me. I have ideas.
I mean, honestly, it's probably a better idea that he's come up with in 20 years.
Oh man, that would be very good. But yeah, I just want Gact to show up and quote poetry at everyone, and everyone's like,
huh?
What is wrong with this guy?
I would love that. Oh my god, could you imagine if he was quoting it at Sid?
Oh my god. There is good possibilities to be had there.
God, Sid and Barrett would just throw him off of the airship at that point. Get out of here.
Oh man.
That would be so funny. Oh man, but I mean, there's some really interesting things that could happen now that we have like this split essentially.
100%. I think it's just interesting considering how trepid we were going into Final Fantasy VII Remake, and now we're coming out of like, hey, look at all these cool things they could do with this.
The key is, will they do the cool things?
Yeah, that's the question. But like, again, I don't think you put this game back out if you're not going to at least like attempt to
draw on it a bit.
That. Yeah.
I think that, like you said, it was a really important thing for them to put out, because with them bringing Zack, like a lot of people didn't know who Zack was.
Right. And you need this game to get that understanding.
You kind of need that to know what's going on there. And like, you had that one scene where you had like Aerith and Cloud walking by, and then you had like Zack and the other version of Cloud like coming by, and it was just like, oh, look at that.
Give me in this alternate universe regular guy Sephiroth back.
I would love that. Give him a flip phone.
Just so Zack when his flip phone is like, "Hey Zack, what's going on? I'm here to report about we got a mission to do." And Zack's like, "What do you mean we got a mission to do? You tried to kill me." And Zack was like, "What? What are you talking about?
What?
I didn't do that.
Nope.
That never happened. What are you talking about?"
Everybody just thinks Zack's losing his mind.
I just want Sephiroth to show up. He's just a regular guy Sephiroth, and everyone wants to fight him. He's like, "You guys, who are you guys? What do you want to fight me for? What's going on here?
What is happening?
What did I do to you guys?" So those are my three things I want from the next Final Fantasy VII remake, which is what it's called, Rebirth or whatever.
Rebirth.
I want them good Zack and Cloud and Aerith interactions. I want Gact backed.
Don't forget Zack and Yuffie interactions too.
Oh my god, yes.
Yes.
Well, we got Yuffie. We gotta get Yuffie to join up with the team as well. So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like that.
That would also be very funny.
That would be so fun.
So yeah, those interactions, Gact being backed,
yes,
and regular guy Sephiroth.
I want
That's
all
my
of
wish
those.
list.
I want all of those things.
Are all those going to happen? Definitely not.
Definitely
but that
not.
would be amazing if they did.
It would be fantastic. Honestly, what they should do is just let us write Rebirth.
Yeah. Yes.
I know
100%.
you guys are trying to release it this year, but what if you let us write it?
We got a couple ideas for you.
A few ideas. Do you guys know how many times I've cried over Zack Fair? Let me help on this writing. Come on.
Oh man.
Kongaga.
Yeah. Gongaga. If we don't hear Gongaga in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I'm gonna throw a chair.
I mean, to be fair, they do go to Gongaga in Final Fantasy
Gongaga.
VII.
Gongaga.
Gongaga.
Yeah. That's Crisis Core.
We're just gonna end it with Gongaga.
It's a video game
It sure is a video game.
that more people can play now.
Some parts of it have not aged well, but it's still a very good game. And it looks prettier now.
It does. Yes, you're right. Regular guy Sephiroth. Gongaga.
Right.
Gacked.
Loveless.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
That's going to do it for this week. So if you'd like more from us, head on over to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sac.cool is where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared and Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, a critical analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, and Hot Tubs and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast early, and a whole wealth of bonus content as well. Next week, Al, did you know what starts this week? Or what has started this week?
No.
March Madness.
Mm.
So next week it's time for our annual tradition of being mad in March.
Yay.
And we got to figure out what we're doing, though.
Okay.
So look forward to that next week.
Woo.